Wondering why you get triggered by your teen daughter? Here's the answer. It may start out as a rational discussion and then bam, she says or does something that makes you lose your mind. At this point, usually yelling, maybe name calling, threats follow, and it could be by you or by her, or both. You may have gone from a totally rational thought process to an irrational emotional response in seconds without even realizing it, until after the argument was over. Then, cue the mom guilt about not keeping your cool in that moment. You have been triggered. This tends to usually happen quite a bit with moms and teen daughters because many of us carry our own baggage from our teen years that's never really been acknowledged or resolved. So this gets all stirred up when your daughter enters adolescence. So when your daughter starts exhibiting behaviors or language or actions that start unpacking this luggage from your youth, we react with emotion straight from the primal center of our brain. And the reaction is usually way larger than it needs to be for the situation. And here's the thing. This usually happens before we even have a chance to pause and consider whether it's rational or not. That's because the reaction is coming directly from our limbic system, which is an automatic response to a perception of danger. When you get triggered emotionally, your brain activates the limbic system for protection and bypasses the prefrontal cortex, which is the portion of your brain that helps control the rational thoughts that balance the irrational sense of danger. It literally signals to your body that one of these things is happening and you need to protect yourself, like right now, this instant, usually related to sadness, anger, fear, panic, humiliation, shame, take your pick. It basically boils down to power. The trigger takes the power away from you because you no longer have control over your reaction. You're able to keep your power through detaching the emotional reaction and attaching observation instead. By doing this, it allows you to be objective in your response instead of reactive. Actually, it's really a two-part process. The trigger is part one and the reaction is part two. But often there's no space in between because our own unfinished business is getting right in the way. When your daughter's triggering you constantly, then she's not usually the cause, but she could be the catalyst. If you step back and observe when these arguments happen, you'll begin to see a pattern that you might be able to start dismantling. Once you do that, you'll usually find a theme that you can trace directly back to your own history, that thing that needs to be resolved. Once you've resolved your own previous issues, then you're able to look at a situation objectively and assess your own feelings without blaming your daughter. For example, you might have a giant reaction to an eye roll from her after you've given her a consequence because maybe you never felt respected by the adults in your life as a teen, while another mom may have no reaction at all. When you get triggered, it's immediate and it's sudden, and it often feels as though you're out of control with no sense of how to gain the control back. It can become a tornado of feelings because it bypasses thought and moves directly to our body. You can't stop to self-regulate because you are in fight or flight mode. Dan Siegel, a neuroscientist, coined the term window of tolerance to describe how we deal with triggers. We all have a window of what and how much we can tolerate before we move into that fight or flight response. Normally, this window is wide open and we're able to manage our feelings and tolerate annoyances pretty easily. However, when a trigger enters the mix, it closes that window to rational thoughts and we move into pure emotions. So if we're already stressed, tired, or upset, we start with a partially open window so any trigger sets us off a lot easier. This is why it's so important for us to enter conversations with our daughters when we are not stressed or exhausted. By building up our own internal resources as moms, we take more control over how we react to triggers, which not only helps us, but strengthens our relationship with our daughter and models appropriate self-regulation for her.